Good morning and welcome to Metro Board activities on October 10th, 2024. Thank you for joining us. It is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and so this month's safety contact will be delivered by our Chief of Digital Modernization, Judd Nicholson. Mr. Nicholson.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. Good morning, everyone, Chair, members of the board, and General Manager. It is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and so brace yourself as we take a quick ride through the biggest cybersecurity risks and how we can stay on track. Cyber attacks are like the traffic in this area. It wreaks havoc on our service plan, frustrates our customers, and costs us time. A major breach could cause our customers to lose trust and regulators to hit the brakes. Right now, ransomware is the #1 concern. It's the cyber equivalent of a hijacker with a demand to pay a ransom to get our data or systems back. And phishing, that's the shady passenger trying to pickpocket credentials from our employees. How are we going to stay on track? #1, drive the culture. Cybersecurity is everyone's responsibility, and through cybersecurity awareness training, we work to remind every employee that cybersecurity is an essential part of Metro's safety culture. #2, focus on the fundamentals. Cybersecurity is complex, but the fundamentals matter the most. Strong access controls, meaning complex passwords and multi-factor authentication, managing system vulnerabilities and securing system configurations are critical in avoiding most emergencies. And third, we should prepare for detours. In the event of a cyber incident, Metro has a tested response plan. Clear routes, trained teams, and a steady hand at the controls to recover as quickly as possible. So in short, if we stay vigilant, stay focused, and lead with security in mind, we'll navigate through most of the risk and keep Metro on the fast track to success. It's been your safety brief. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right. So we're starting off this morning with the finance.
It was really good, except that #1 is not drive.
We're starting off this morning with the Finance and Capital Committee. This is our first public meeting of the day, so I'll ask Ms. Ellison, the board's corporate secretary, to call the roll.
Chair Letourneau.
Present.
Vice Chair Klein.
Present.
Director Santos.
Present.
Director McAndrew.
Here.
Director Smedberg.
Present.
Director Martin Proctor.
Good morning.
Director Heddenlow. Here. Director Drummer.
Present.
Chair, you have quorum.
Great. Our first order of business is to approve the agenda. I'd like to move to approve the agenda as presented. Are there any objections by members of the committee to the agenda? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as presented. Now to the approval of the minutes. We have the minutes of our September 26th meeting before us for approval. Are there any objections to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, we'll consider the minutes approved as presented. So we have 2 items on this morning's agenda. The committee will be receiving the annual environmental sustainability report, which aligns with the sustainability goal in our strategic transformation plans and highlights the key actions as initiatives are underway to drive progress in this area. Then we'll be discussing the formulas used that are used to calculate how jurisdictions provide operating support for Metro Rail and Metro Bus service. Today's presentation will cover both the current formulas and the history behind them, which you kind of need a PhD to understand, so good luck, as well as provide a proposed new subsidy formula to better serve the region's need and align with our goals around transit ridership. And I'll tell you, this is something that's been around with us for 20 years. It's a very difficult thing to change the formula because if there's one thing that we all know, it's that each of our jurisdictions think that they pay too much. All those things can't be true. So I think staff has really done a fantastic job bringing us something that we can all be proud of that will help us move forward. So I'm looking forward to that discussion. I will turn the floor over to Mr. Webster, our Chief Planning and Performance Officer, and Ms. Healy, our Director of Sustainability, to begin today's presentations.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Again, Tom Webster, Executive Vice President and Chief Planning and Performance Officer. Very pleased to be here to share with the board and the public our annual environmental sustainability report. I'm going to turn it right over to Rachel, our Director of Sustainability, to walk through the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Webster. Thank you, Mr. Webster, for the introduction, and good morning, board. Thank you for your time. Today, I'll be presenting Metro's second annual environmental sustainability report under Your Metro, the Way Forward. The 2024 report is aligned with the sustainability goal in Metro's strategic transformation plan and serves to drive responsible use of resources and maximize the total return on investment in Metro to the region. Today, we're reporting on metrics under Metro's environmental sustainability goal. You'll see in the green bar our overall metric, regional emissions avoidance. This helps track our impact on reduced travel-related emissions in the District, Maryland, and Virginia. Emissions reductions, in many ways, is the most impactful environmental sustainability outcome that we provide for the region. Our emissions avoidance impact increases when we provide service that results in increased ridership and when we become more efficient in our own operations. We also have metrics in the bottom section of the table that measure the efficiency and sustainability of our own operations. Today, I'll start with an update on the emissions avoidance metric, then follow with updates on two metrics that help track Metro's progress towards decarbonization of our own operations. Updates on the remaining metrics and STP Sustainability Initiative highlights are included in the appendix. Overall, these metrics are tracked long-term and incremental progress over years rather than months or quarters, which is why we report them annually, and they continue to trend in the right direction. Sorry. As you know, our partners in the region are doing a lot of good work on sustainability, mobility, climate resiliency, health, and equity, and have set ambitious goals, including increased mode share for transit, walking, and biking, reduced driving and vehicle miles traveled, significant reductions in greenhouse gas emissions, development of transit-oriented communities, and building more housing near transit. Transit remains a critical element for the success as the region works towards meeting these goals. Highlights from our recent Benefits of Transit report really show that transit is something of a Swiss Army knife or multifunction tool that helps the region reach a range of regional goals. Some of these highlights include that by 2025, transit will keep 1.2 million cars off the road every day, saving billions in avoided road and parking construction costs. Further, transit is 20 times safer than driving, avoiding nearly 30 deaths and over 2,500 injuries each year. In addition to greenhouse gas reduction benefits, transit avoids an additional 8 metric tons of particulate matter, PM 2.5, from poisoning the air every year. And transit-oriented development has repaid the region's investment in transit many times over by creating an estimated $3.2 billion in annual property tax revenue from land and buildings near metro stations. I also want to acknowledge the value that transit provides the region depends on partners across the region making key investments and policy decisions that drive increased transit ridership, such as Montgomery County's tax abatement for transit-oriented development on metro property, DC's rollout of clear lanes, Prince George's County's activization of the Blue Line corridor, and the study of several BRT routes in Virginia, as well as the region's active engagement in the DMV Moods initiative. Okay, so on this slide, I'm going to review our performance on the carbon emissions avoidance metric. That was the one that's the overall environmental sustainability metric that we report. And reducing regional transportation emissions not only helps the region meet our carbon reduction goals, it supports clean air and health. So there's more than one thing we're reporting on here, even though it does focus on carbon. Metro reduces transportation-related emissions by shifting people from cars to transit, reducing congestion, and supporting transit-oriented sustainable land use. In fiscal year 24, our transit service enabled the region to avoid more than 2.3 million metric tons of transportation-related carbon emissions. That's a lot. And if you're not familiar with emissions, that's about the same amount that you would get from 1.8 million single-family homes over a year. So to just take a moment and recognize and give credit to what's driving that increase that you see on the graph, and that's increases in service, adding new service, and growing ridership. Just between 2023 and 2024, we saw a 26% increase in this metric. That's an additional 2 million metric tons of avoided emissions in our area. That's pretty significant. In addition, while it's small in comparison to our overall impact of our service, we're also paying close attention to how much we emit, just 0.3 million metric tons. And we will continue to take action and manage our carbon footprint. While reducing our own emissions is a priority, it should not come at the expense of the high-quality service and ridership that's been driving the reduction in regional transportation emissions that we've been seeing the past several years. The more the region can provide frequent service and support ridership growth, the more successful we will be at driving this metric. The previous slide I was talking about are regional emissions reductions. Now we're going to talk about how Metro is working to manage our own emissions in support of that overall metric. The Strategic Transformation Plan sets a target to use 100% clean electricity by 2033. And we began this transition to clean energy in fiscal 22 with our first clean energy supply contract. And now in fiscal 24, we're up to 33% clean electricity usage. And available clean energy market solutions, demand, generation and transition capacity, and fiscal considerations all influence our ability to make progress towards our clean energy target. We continue to strategically engage in the market to meet board-adopted energy goals, control costs, and support the region's clean energy transition. That includes continuing to work with the General Services Administration to secure favorable pricing and lower administrative costs while meeting clean energy requirements, monitoring the market for clean energy contracting opportunities, and participating in carbon-free electricity solicitation for a new Maryland supply contract coming up in 2025. Converting vehicles to zero-emission fleets also promotes clean air, health, and livability. Metro's board set a goal to achieve 100% zero-emission bus fleet by 2042 and 100% zero-emission non-revenue paratransit fleets by 2050. We are continuing to implement activities in the zero-emission bus transition plan. Over the past year, we put 4 new battery electric buses into service at Shepherd Parkway Bus Garage, and we have 3 additional electric bus garages in the design and construction process and a larger bus procurement underway. Along with these initial successes, Metro has, like our peers, continued to face certain challenges. As you may be aware, there are a limited number of bus manufacturers in the U.S. Currently, there are only 2 manufacturers that Metro can buy buses from with federal funding. At the same time, there's high demand for zero-emission buses and charging equipment as other transit agencies ramp up their zero-emission bus purchases. As the market matures to meet demand, and Metro continues to add zero-emission vehicles to its fleets, we will continue to assess the landscape, learn from our peers, and adapt as needed to advance zero-emission bus fleet as it is funded. And the last slide. Opportunities to build on the environmental sustainability benefits that Metro brings to the region can be categorized as service-related. By providing safe, frequent, and reliable service, we can optimize existing transit investments and reduce regional emissions. Examples of this include the bus network redesign and automatic train operations, prioritizing transit, walking, and biking with regional partnership to reduce vehicle miles traveled and boost regional benefits. And examples of that include transit-oriented development and bus priority and clear lanes. And then modernization, how we invest in new technologies and practices enhancing energy and cost efficiency, with examples including cooperative procurement of new technologies, including vehicles such as zero-emission bus and climate resiliency. Metro will continue to commit staff and invest resources toward achieving environmental sustainability goals, and will work with our regional stakeholders to increase the region's return on investment in transit. And that completes today's annual environmental sustainability report presentation.
Thank you very much. Are there questions, comments? Start with committee members. Thank you very much. This is good work. I think it's always worth noting that, especially as it relates to the electric bus discussion, that putting even 5, 10, 15, 20 people, even in a diesel bus, is a better environmental option than those people all in cars, right? So I know there's challenges obtaining electric buses, and then obviously all the work that we have to do to convert parts of our bus depots and things like that. But we're held to a high standard, understandably. But everything we're doing is actually moving in the right direction. Dr. Lowe?
I don't disagree with anything you just said, and I think that really is the right regional perspective and how to look at this. But we also have to remember that like somebody actually has to live next to bus garages. And I'm not just talking about myself, right? There are like other people who have to do it too. And that we've made promises to them that we are just gonna have to figure out. The procurement reality is what it is, and is absolutely like not WMATA's fault. And so that's something that we're just that I need to learn more about, like how we can sort out, as we think about the future of the electrification program and how we navigate through this.
Very true. Okay. Chair Santos.
Thanks. I agree with the prior comments, and I would ask if you have any comments or context that you could share with us about balancing between the economic considerations as well as the environmental benefits. I know the presentation was appropriately focused very much on the environmental benefits, but given the fiscal situation that we find ourselves in, it'd be really helpful to hear your comments on that. Thanks.
Thank you for the question. As it relates to the zero emission bus program and sort of the outlook from both a financial and a goal standpoint, we're going to be back in later this month with an update on the zero emission program that will weigh some of those financial considerations, market considerations, and both regional and local environmental benefits. So more to come on that. In the space of renewable electricity purchases, that's also a consideration. It is slightly more expensive to invest in renewable energy. And so as we look forward to our goals to be carbon free and to modernize our electricity purchases, both financial and environmental benefits are considered in that, and we'll continue to inform the board of those trade-offs. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments on this topic? Being none, oh, Mr. Drummer, in at the buzzer.
I will make one comment. Impressive progress. You're committed to the environment. That is critical. I appreciate the chair bringing up the fact that there's always a balance and a trade-off with regard to the economics associated with it. What I really like about what I've seen is the fact that you're prepared to be flexible and agile with regard to the challenges associated with what it costs versus the actual impact. And as changes are made over time in shifts in priorities, not in objectives, but in priorities and when things can be executed, we still make progress, and you can still tell the positive story and the positive impact that you're making. That's critical. because regardless of when it's executed, it's still going to make an impact. And it appears that Team WMATA is focused on delivering regardless of the timeline. So thank you for that, and stay diligent in that process. Don't give in, because there are naysayers who will say, stop, don't do this. Let's go back to what we're doing in the past. So thank you for that hard work.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right, moving on to Metro Bus and Metro Rail operating subsidy formulas.
All right. Thank you again, Mr. Chair and members of the committee and the board. Very excited to be here to talk about That is the case. Maybe hopefully that's better. Now you can't hear me. Now you can. Okay. Try this one. Can you hear me now? No. Okay, I think that. Okay. All right. So thank you again. We're here to discuss restructuring Metro's Metrobus and Metro Rail operating subsidy formulas. This is a summary presentation and reflects a lot of work by Metro staff, our partners around the region. So again, pleased to be here to share this information. So this is aligned with our strategic transformation plan and our financial sustainability goals, and is an initiative identified in that strategic transformation plan to update and refresh and modernize the operating subsidy formulas for jurisdictional investment in Metro. About a little over a year ago, members of the board and some of our partners asked us to take a look at the legacy operating subsidy formulas. And over the past year or so, we have been workshopping with internal Metro staff, jurisdictional partners, and the board and others around the region to consider modernization concepts and to develop this restructured proposal. Just want to say at the beginning, there's been a lot of work on this and a lot of partnership with particularly the JCC and the board and others around the region. And I think we've landed on a concept that balances a lot of the interests across the region and here at Metro. I won't go back into this, as Rachel just covered this considerably, but of course, investments in Metro benefit our entire region, investments in transit in a variety of ways. Those investments in Metro come through multiple sources and methods and allocation methodologies. There are several allocation methodologies for capital funding for Metro. Some of which are legislative and in law, how those costs or investments are shared across the jurisdictions. The operating subsidy formulas are legacy at this time and are established by board policy. That's going to be the focus of our discussion today, the Metrobus and Metro Rail operating subsidies. So I'm going to turn it over to Allison to continue the presentation.
And I'm going to use the one mic. So yes, legacy being that yes, Metro's had these operating subsidy formulas for many decades. So if you see on the slide, right, rail has been around since 1977, and the Metrobus, the current Metrobus subsidy formula dates back to 1997. And so, I think we can all recognize how different the region is from then, what the system was trying to do, if we think about what was happening in 1977 with Metro Rail, and what was happening in 1997 with bus. And so they were really created at a different time, a different region, a different service system overall. And so as Tom noted, really, this effort is seeking to modernize the investments that we as a region make in Metro, simplify the approach, make it more understandable and legible, as well as align the costs and service that we provide. So again, the appendix has a lot of information. This is a incredibly high-level summary of what the current subsidy formulas have included. So I'll start on the right, actually, with rail. But it was really created during an expansion period, right, when we were really building out the entire system. And so it created a formula that focused on the benefits, development at stations, and then benefits of service to riders, as well as non-riders, and like those environmental benefits that Rachel mentioned, as well as a lot of the economic benefits that we provide. And then that maximum fare subsidy was added on when to really take in and accommodate the benefits of the cap fares that we have. The Metrobus formula has these two flavors of service, right? Regional was developed to be similar to the way Metro Rail is funded, and encourage a more regional approach to service. And that's about 80% of the service we provide, but it's those heavy hauler routes on major corridors that cross jurisdictional boundaries. That's also benefits based about riders, non-riders, and the service that's operated. Then the remainder of that service is really the localized service that operates within jurisdictions. So as Tom noted, we did a lot of workshopping with many of you, staff internally at Metro, as well as our partners, and really wanted to understand what those challenges are. So that PhD comment that the committee chair mentioned is apt. And so we really wanted to make sure we understood what the challenges were, because there are a lot of, making one change here can have implications further down the line. So we wanted to make sure we understood what those challenges were. And so I'm not going to read through all of these, but it's really clear that neither bus or rail have a direct relationship between the service levels that we provide and the subsidy that is paid. And that became clear, as you know, going through the budget every year, that is very clear. And then when service is adjusted, whether it's more or less, it's not clear what's going to happen to the subsidy, right? Like there's not a good understanding of what the bill is going to be and what that predictability and that unpredictability for local budgets. And then finally, many of those variables are really cumbersome and frankly downright confusing. And that's for people who work with the subsidy formula all the time, not to mention elected officials, staff, and people who really have a limited interaction with it. So we wanted to make sure that we were using data that we have and making it as clear as could be. So we've got two examples. Again, the appendix has a couple of other examples, and this is, we selected two. There are many that we could have selected to talk about some of these challenges. But for one, the 11Y. So the 11Y is service that serves from Mount Vernon. It's peak period, peak direction, serves Mount Vernon, City of Alexandria, and then comes into the district during those peak times. And so during the pandemic, we were not operating it. Alexandria requested that we restore it in FY24. So it's a more recent example of it. But this route does cross jurisdictional boundaries, right, between Fairfax, City of Alexandria into the district. And it's also operating on major routes or major roads. And so it is defined as a regional service, and therefore all of our funding partners pay a portion of its restoration. But obviously looking at the service pattern, the people who really benefit are Alexandrians, Fairfax County residents. And so in this case, restoring the service increased Maryland's subsidy $115,000, while the City of Alexandria increased their subsidy of $16,000. So it's really that imbalance between the service and who's benefiting and the subsidy paid. And so that disconnect creates confusion. It creates a lack of predictability, distrust with what the calculations are telling us. And it's a potential barrier to additional investment, which I think we all want to see in terms of more transit. We've got a rail example of back in 2020, we extended the yellow line to Greenbelt and red line trains to Glenmont. And so at that, the current formula doesn't really consider service costs at all. And so all jurisdictions were paying for that, while 95% of the riders who benefited live in the District of Maryland. And so again, that's that disconnect between what we're purporting, the service that we're putting out there and the cost of that, and who is paying and what those benefits are. So thinking about how do we want to restructure this formula, and like what were some of those goals? We wanted to make sure that we are really considering service from a regional perspective, making sure that those investments are going into where service really needs to be, increasing that legibility, making sure the variables we use are things that people kind of understand and make sense, making sure it's transparent for our funding partners, aligning the service benefits and costs, and then finally getting to that fiscal predictability so that you and your jurisdictions know how much or have a better indication of how much the subsidy will be at the end. So I'm just going to pause on this slide. There's a lot of content on this slide. We're not going to go through all of it. But just to roadmap, top half is Metro Rail, bottom half is Metro Bus. The blue on the left is the current high-level summary of the allocation formula, and the right in the green is what's restructured. So you can see for Metro Rail, top line, revenue comes off the top for rail, and then it's really just a distribution of that subsidy by those percentages and those variables. The restructure is really looking at true costs and revenues, and from a cost perspective, it's dividing into infrastructure, so that's track and stations, and those need to be working whether we operate 1 train an hour or 26 trains an hour. Like that's fundamental. The system costs, which are the costs that are needed to make Metro function. So that is, our legal team, that is our HR, that is, all of the things, planning, all of the things that are necessary for a transit agency to function. And then we have the service costs. So it's, again, really trying to hone in on the different types of costs and then how those are distributed. And then again, the share of revenues focused on passenger and non-passenger and distributing that. Metrobus, again, we've got those 2 flavors of service. That's the non-regional and regional and how those are distributed. And then on the restructured side, again, really taking out those costs of system and service and then distributing those share of revenue. And again, all of this, each one of these variables is provided in the appendix with more detail as to what it is, why we chose it, and how the calculation works. So I'm going to move through this one. This is our last major slide, but this just highlights kind of some of those goals, well, all of the 5 goals, which are on the left, some of those challenges, and then how the restructured formula kind of gets to answering those challenges. So I'll just pick a few, but that legibility, it's, again, the confusion for staff and stakeholders. And so, for example, we've eliminated that maximum rail subsidy portion of the rail side. Increasing transparency, it really creates audit challenges, confusion of how things work. And so for that, we got rid of the regional, non-regional, and we just have one service definition. A Metro Bus hour is a Metro Bus hour, regardless of where it operates. And then the third one is that aligning service benefits and costs, and that's how that relationship between subsidy and the service levels, and for this is allocating those revenues and operating costs based actually how they are allocated. So finally, next steps, incorporating any feedback that you have today and going forward, and then recommending, coming back next month, recommending board adoption of that restructured formula, and then applying it to the Better Bus Network and moving forward in the operating budget. So with that, happy to answer any questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Allison and Tom, and Matt had a lot to do with this too. So I think the word that I was used to describe this was elegant, because it is really a solution set that each jurisdiction benefits from in a different way. Some of these concepts sound simple, like jurisdiction should essentially pay for the bus service that's happening in the jurisdiction, but obviously that was not the case previously. But even that type of change sort of frees up different priorities in different jurisdictions, such that if a particular one of our jurisdictions wants to have more service and wants to do something in a particular area or wants to run more hours, they're essentially unencumbered to do that, and they can do so if they're willing to pay for it. And so that's a great solution. On the rail side, pretty simple, perhaps, again, that you should pay for what the actual costs are associated with running service, but that isn't really how we did it in the past. And so again, that makes a lot of sense. The infrastructure cost is there. The operating costs are there. Let's figure out what it's actually costing us to run the system. Obviously in Virginia, we've had concerns about fare evasion. I think by essentially crediting paid ridership, we help incentivize paid ridership and therefore disincentivizing fare evasion. So that's a plus if you're looking at it from that perspective. But there's different components here across the board. So I don't think that we're hopefully going to have too many changes up here. We've had a lot of discussions about this internally. I know just for the public's benefit, we're having some sort of micro discussions within the Virginia allocation, sub-allocations for each jurisdiction. And there are some tweaks to this formula that we're potentially implementing to help kind of smooth out how that works. We have a unique situation in Virginia with our small cities in particular. They don't have big budgets, but if you're making significant changes that may result in big changes, we have to sort of deal with that. So we're working on that. But otherwise, I think this is excellent, and I really appreciate all the work. Other questions and comments? Mr. McAndrew.
I agree with everything that the chair just said, and just hats off to the team. This is a sticky wicket. And there's a reason why this hasn't been open for many years. So, just trying to get the brain to think differently and take this on is a challenge. So hats off. We'll see if we can make it through. Just one item, to the chair's comment. I think just case in point, in the state of Maryland, for years there's been discussions about turnbacks. There's still discussions about turnbacks some days of the week. It's not a position that the state supports and won't look to support. But at the end of the day, what this formula change does is at least give us the ability to have that discussion and reap a benefit or a cost, and more fairly and equitably, not just to the state of Maryland, but same goes to our colleagues in Virginia and DC. It helps us rationalize our decisions collectively as a board, but also for those folks that are paying the bills, which I think is fair and right. One item that I just want to, there was a great article in the Post yesterday covering this story. Thank you to the individual who wrote it. I think it was somewhat maybe misaligned with the fare evasion and whose responsibility it is to solve said fare evasion. I'd just like to share that I think that it is a societal challenge that we all grapple with, but it ultimately is a responsibility for everybody, WMATA included, as well as the jurisdictions. And I think we all have a role and responsibility and trying to encourage, incent, and enforce those that are able and can to pay the fare, because that's at the end of the day how we keep the lights on here. So, but just wanted to. That's a little bit longer soundbite than the one sentence headline, but I think it is important that WMATA continue to do the work both on bus and rail to support, and it's important for the state and local jurisdictions to do their part as well.
Ms. Santos.
Thanks. Oops. Can you hear me? Is that all right? No? Louder? Okay. Oops. A couple things. First, most importantly, I just want to acknowledge in particular Tom and Yetunde's patience, tremendous hard work, and willingness to have multiple meetings, repeated meetings, both at the technical level and as well as with our elected representatives in the District of Columbia. I, speaking on behalf of the city, I appreciate your patience. I know with lots of questions coming in, and I know they're still coming in, so just wanted to acknowledge that. Echoing some of what my colleague over here said, we're obviously at an inflection point right now in terms of Metro. and our financial sustainability. I mean, needless to say, no one's going to abandon the system. However, it is also true that the trends in terms of the commercial office market and ridership are such that this has been a turbulent period coming out of COVID, to state the obvious. And as a board, we are obviously wrestling with strategic choices, policy choices moving forward, the trade-offs between environmental impact, economic impact for the region. Our region depends on the success of WMATA, of Metro, and the quality of service. So again, acknowledging the tremendous work of our general manager and the team, and we're moving in the positive direction. And how this relates, of course, is the increased transparency and predictability will significantly help as we collectively, Team Metro, I like the phrase my colleague, Mr. Drummer, used, make the case in terms of continued investment from our jurisdictional partners. Again, even in this time of tremendous fiscal pressure, making the case that there is a collective, a region we're one team. We may have differences about, and we compete with one another, but when it comes to Metro, we need to pull together. And I just want to acknowledge that, again, this process very much supports us in this year, but also next fiscal year, continuing to make the case for ongoing investment. Thanks.
Thank you. Dr. Lowe.
One question and then some comments. When we take this formula and then run it, for example, on like this year's operating budget, how does it actually net out in terms of not even breaking it down like at the level of like by mode, just top level numbers? What kind of changes do we see in how much each of the three jurisdictions pays, not even getting into breaking it down in Virginia?
So we did, thank you for the question, Dr. Lowe. We did a number of tests and scenarios of applying the restructured formula proposal to the existing budget and to scenarios working with the jurisdictions on that. In applying it to our existing FY25 subsidy allocation, there are not major swings among the jurisdictions. Very small dollar amounts in total across relative to the scale of the investment in Metro. So be providing more information about that as part of this next month process. And then, of course, applying that to FY26 introduces additional variables from service levels, the bus network redesign, and other factors. But largely, there's stability in the application of this new restructured formula as compared to the old, and some of the features that Allison described earlier are stabilizing into the future as well, where in the past with the legacy formulas, a change in one input could have big swings among the jurisdictions. There's, as the chair said, there's some elegance in this by balancing a number of these factors. We shouldn't experience those same swings unless there are major changes in levels of service, which is different than some of the inputs from the legacy formulas.
Thank you for that. And I think this is really important to highlight because yes, this is elegant, and frankly, congratulations. Staff are to be commended for a tremendous job on this. It's really impressive. But I think more importantly, this is responsible and transparent, which the current formula is not. We have heard for years from a broad variety of stakeholders that there's a desire for WMATA to manage costs in a way that is logical and responsible and possible for normal people to understand, like what the costs and the benefits are. And we haven't been able to do that because of how weird this formula is. So I think that, we as a board over time have spent a lot of time, frankly, on stuff that's like not as important as this. And so I'm really proud of this management team and this group that we are at the point where we can take this on and get something as big and existential done and strategic done for this organization and for this region as rethinking this formula in this extremely logical way. It's also great that it's elegant, but this isn't going to change anything in the macro fiscal picture. What it does do is introduce responsibility, logic, and transparency into how we are making decisions about the future, whether that's service levels, turnbacks, whatever. And that is a huge win for all of us as a region. I'm incredibly proud of this team, and we need to figure out how to get this done, no matter how many meetings we need to have about it.
Mr. Spedberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Obviously, thank you to the team for doing this, but also want to acknowledge, I think Joe or someone may have mentioned it, what is going on with these mics today? All right, there we go. The jurisdictional staff that was also part of this process that helped us to get to this point. Yes, it's elegant. Yes, it's responsible and transparent. But I think the underlying thing here is that it's fair. And I think that's what brought everyone, over the line, so to speak, and, general agreement that this is, the right way to go. So I think, having that fairness as a base here, I think is really, really important, particularly with some of the other issues that we're going to have to deal with, in the very near future. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Well, I will wait until hopefully we adopt in November before being too laudatory. But this, as Dr. Lowe said, this is truly an existential thing for us. It is a third rail issue, pun somewhat intended. Very difficult for a board made up of jurisdictions that governs with the jurisdictional veto, no less, to take on. But the fact that we're here is a testament to a lot of work that went into it in the front end to get the right concepts, to talk through what fairness means to everybody. This wasn't just done in a vacuum. It wasn't just Metro staff sitting in a room and saying, this is what we're going to come out with. There was an ongoing dialogue at the front end, and then there was a lot of engagement with the board throughout the process to understand what would make sense. So we're just about at the finish line. Certainly wanted to be transparent with the public so they understand what we're looking at. And that's the purpose of kind of doing this today as just an introduction, informational item, and allowing for any final feedback that might be out there, or at least for us to help explain some of the nuances to this. But, I think we're just about there and looking forward to having that final vote and conversation coming up. Okay, with no further business to come before the Finance Committee, we stand adjourned, and I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Drummer to begin the Safety and Operations Committee meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Letourneau. Good morning again, everyone, and welcome to our Safety and Operations Committee meeting. I'm Don Drummer, the committee chair, and I want to take this moment to extend special thanks to Vice Chair Martin Proctor for her excellent work and unique style in leading the committee throughout the month of September during my absence. So thank you very, very much. We appreciate that. Our first order of business this morning is to approve the agenda. Are there any objections by members of the committee? Hearing none, the agenda is approved as presented. Now to approval of the minutes of our September 26th meeting. Are there any objections? Hearing none, the minutes are approved. This morning, we have one action item and one information item on today's agenda. In the action item, staff is seeking committee and subsequently board approval to submit the 2025 Metro Agency Safety Plan to the Washington Metro Rail Safety Commission Board of Commissioners for final approval. In the information item, we'll receive an update on the Better Bus Network redesign, including a summary of the extensive public engagement that took place in the past spring and summer and how the feedback the feedback shape changes to the proposals. And I'll note that a revised version of the network will be developed and presented to the board next month for approval. At this point, I'll turn the floor over to Ms. Impastato.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This presentation will review changes made to our agency safety plan in preparation for the upcoming year. Today's updates align with the strategic plan goal for service excellence and the objectives of promoting safety, increasing reliability, and empowering staff. The agency safety plan was first approved by the board in 2020. Over the course of our journey to date, we've progressed from orientation and commitment in our earliest efforts, which were comprised of information gathering and securing top-down and organization-wide commitment to develop and implement our safety management system. During this time, we performed extensive data gathering, benchmarking with other high-risk industries that had implemented SMS, and critically self-assessed to ensure that we were prepared with appropriate resources and knowledge to support a safety management system and transform the rhetoric of our plan into reality. We then shifted our focus towards planning and development of tools and processes that enabled rapid and effective responsive risk assessment. We are now shifting our focus towards proactive processes and enhanced stakeholder engagement. Version 5 includes expanded outreach of the program to our frontline employees, enhanced data acquisition and analyses to inform decision-making, and measuring our progress on improving our safety culture. By way of review, there are 4 components of a safety management system, all of which are intrinsically linked. This includes safety management policy, which is our leadership commitment and accountability for the implementation of our safety management system. It formalizes the adoption of SMS principles throughout Metro. Safety risk management, which enables us to identify, assess, and mitigate our risks, includes data, processes, and tools to drive proactive action before incidents occur. Safety assurance, which enables us to measure, monitor, and evaluate our progress. This includes oversight to verify that the actions that we're taking are working as intended. And all of these processes take place against the larger backdrop of safety promotional efforts, which are sought to shape the culture required to sustain the long-term effectiveness of our safety management system. This slide depicts the agency safety plan review timeline. The agency safety plan is a living document and undergoes extensive review throughout the course of our operations. The document is available year-round with availability for comment by any Metro employee. Beginning in March of every year, we start conducting an agency safety plan review. We'll compare the drafting of our agency safety plan and performance over the prior year with any changes that may have occurred in the regulatory landscape, as well as any progress that we've made implementing our quality management system or other efforts. Beginning in April, we'll formally solicit comments from Metro staff throughout the organization, as well as members of the Joint Labor Management Safety Committee. In May, we'll incorporate the comments received year to date, as well as with a targeted solicitation in April, and prepare an agency safety plan draft. We then send the agency safety plan draft to the Federal Transit Administration's Technical Assistance Center for a review of the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan. Throughout June and July, we enter an iterative process for review with our state safety oversight, the Washington Metro Rail Safety Commission. In August, we received conditional approval from the WMSC, and we finalized the drafting of the agency safety plan. Throughout September, the Joint Labor Management Safety Committee, Executive Safety Committee, and General Manager reviewed and ultimately approved the agency safety plan that I am presenting before the board today. We're now seeking board approval in order to enable our submittal to the WMSC for their final approval. In December, we'll certify our compliance with the agency safety plan with the FTA. I'd like to highlight some of the plan enhancements that are planned for 2025. There are edits in the agency safety plan in response to regulatory changes issued by the Federal Transit Administration. This includes the expansion of Metro's risk reduction program. The FTA issued revised regulations in final form, and Metro has incorporated changes around risk reduction, specifically looking at bus operator accident reduction and transit worker assault mitigation efforts. All of those are now outlined in the agency safety plan, which also references a dedicated standalone risk reduction program, the targets and objectives of which have been established by Metro and approved by the Joint Labor Management Safety Committee. Additionally, with regard to updating some internal changes that are reflected in this version of the agency safety plan, we included a revised risk assessment process that concentrates on cross-departmental collaboration of similar risks, as well as communication out to individuals who noted the risk. We've also reflected some departmental reorganization that's occurred over the prior year, as well as demonstrating progress and reflecting departmental milestones in terms of maturity of implementing safety risk management throughout the organization. We've accordingly updated the departmental milestones to reflect the plans that we have for 2025. With regard to solicitation of feedback, as I stated, the plan is open to all Metro employees throughout the year. We did receive feedback from the Joint Labor Management Safety Committee on the plan, as well as members of the Executive Safety Committee. We submitted the plan to the FTA and received no formal concerns or issues relative to our plan's compliance with the FTA rule. Additionally, we received some feedback from our oversight, the Washington Metro Rail Safety Commission, all of which has been resolved and reflected in the current version of the agency safety plan that's before the board. Additionally, our senior executive team have reviewed the agency safety plan and concur with all of the goals, objectives, and resources needed to support it. So our next steps before you today are the agency safety plan and its associated goals for approval. Respectfully, staff is asking the board to review and approve the agency safety plan. Once approved, we will then submit to the WMSD for their final approval. And as I stated, self-certify our compliance with the FTA. Once those procedural aspects are underway, we will then really turn to the real work, continuing to make sure that our agency safety plan and our safety management system are being continued to mature and expand the implementation. That concludes our presentation, and with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have.
Thank you very much, Teresa. I'll take a moment to put this in perspective. First, I want to say thank you to you and your team for the work, team of teams, and across the organization for the work that's been done in safety. Tremendous success, and we look forward to what's going to happen in the future. To put it in perspective, the vision is clear. You all have stated very clearly in this organization, world-class safety management system. The roadmap is working well and evolving, and we appreciate that. The priorities are well-defined and certainly aligned with this strategic transformation plan. And the ASP, this agency safety plan, is where the rubber meets the road. This is where it's executed. And you're implementing with world-class efficiency and effectiveness. And anyone associated or affiliated with safety and operations can't help but be enthusiastic about what we see. We recognize it's day to day, hour to hour. The bottom line is if you have a good system, you can certainly have branches and sequels to respond to any challenges that are ahead of us. So thank you for the world-class operations that we're seeing in WMATA today. At this point, what I'll do is turn it over to any member of the committee who might have comments or questions.
That was well said, Don.
Oh, thank you. Ms. Martin Proctor.
Just one quick comment. I want to once again thank this committee for all their time, attention, and for this robust plan. And just as a personal note, thank you for also including that this is a living document. The fact that we stand on that principle, that this will not remain static, that it is something that will change and evolve as the environment changes and evolves, is just an amazing and wonderful principle, and I truly appreciate that being incorporated. I second Colonel Drummer's comments, and looking forward to seeing how this moves and progresses as we move forward in the gold standard of safety and operation that WMATA has. Thank you.
Okay, hearing none. Since there are no further questions, I would like to move approval of this item. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Dr. Lowe. Now I'll ask the board corporate secretary to call the vote.
Chair Drummer,
Aye.
Vice Chair Martin Proctor,
Yes.
Mr. Smedberg,
Aye.
Dr. Lowe.
Aye.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we'll move to our next set of presentations. Tom, Allison, and Peter, I'll turn the floor over to you.
All right. Thank you, Chair Drummer and members of the committee. On behalf of the Better Bus team, Peter and I are thrilled to provide an update on the Better Bus Network redesign. As you mentioned, Chair Drummer, we're going to focus on the outcomes of the third round of outreach that we conducted in the spring and summer, and then next steps to gain adoption so that we can actually begin to implement the Better Bus Network for our customers in the region. So as you know, redesigning the Metrobus network touches on a number of strategic transformation plan activities, including delivering frequent service and frequent and accessible service, moving more people, equitably connecting the region, and combating climate change. We want to ensure that our efforts are grounded in our customers and potential customers' priorities, right? So we know that at the start of the project 2 years ago, we went out and surveyed our customers and potential customers. We were all over the region at metro stations, at farmers markets and the like, to really understand gaps in the service we provide, barriers to having people take transit, as well as what those opportunities and priorities were. And as you can see from this slide, we really heard clearly that from current and potential customers that frequency, which is that shorter wait times, and reliability, consistent travel time, consistent arrival time, are really the two key priorities. Obviously, current customers want to make sure that the bus actually gets them where they want to go, and potential customers, I think, have a bit of anxiety around transfers, and so want to make sure that that's quick and easy. But again, like the frequency and reliability, it's a theme we hear every time we talk to our customers, and that came very clear as part of this effort. So with that, we built a strategic approach to that Better Bus Network, and obviously connecting people where they want to go, when they want to go, is paramount. Obviously, if it doesn't go where you want to go, when you want to go, it's not really an option. But making sure that it's frequent and consistent bus service, advancing access to opportunity. So it's ensuring customers in our equity-focused communities have the high-quality bus service when they need to travel, and where they need to travel. And then making bus service easier to understand. That's a legibility, that's breaking down the barriers to 150 bus routes, and making sure that people understand where they board the bus, what it means, where they can go. And then making sure we're prepared for the future. Things like the Purple Line, things like new development that are coming in that we're aware of, making sure that we're able to serve those locations. So the network is really based on extensive quantitative and qualitative data and analysis. And Peter and I are here, but there is an incredible team that, at Metro and with some vendor support to really go through all of this data and make some really informed analysis and decisions to help us build that network. But we utilized our internal data, obviously, right? Our pre-COVID as well as current data about ridership, on-time performance, passengers per trip, other metrics that we have. But if we really want more people to be riding, and that is the obvious goal, we need to know what's happening with other trips in the region, right? So that's really making sure we understand the development that our regional partners are putting out there in terms of where housing, where development deployment is going, but also understanding the trips that people are making that are not on transit. So that's that cell phone data that we've talked about before. Utilizing that to understand where are those opportunities, where are places that we could be more competitive, but we're not right now. And so those are some proverbial low-hanging fruit that we can better serve those types of trips. And so all of that informed the network to build the network that we took out to the public. And then as Peter is going to talk about, we used all of those comments, not necessarily that we could address them all, but we read them all and really built those into some of those changes that we made to make sure that what we're hearing from customers and potential customers is reflected in that network. So I'll turn it over to Peter to talk through the next.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you, Chair Drummer and board members. I'm Peter Cafiero, by the way, Vice President of Service Planning and Schedules, and Allison's partner in this undertaking that we've been on in the last couple of years. This past spring, we had a series of over 2 months of significant public engagement. You can see some of the video of it going on in the slide right now. We had over 80 events, 40 of which were Metro-led, but we also partnered with elected officials and other organizations to expand our reach efficiently from a Metro dollar perspective, but also to really get to people where they were, and that also included us being on board buses and talking to riders on buses. Those events generated over 15,000 interactions with customers, and those customers then generated both in person and online over 13,000 comments on our proposed draft network for fiscal 25. We also, I should say, spoke to over 400 employees, Metro employees, particularly bus operators. We went to all of the divisions to talk to operators. They know the routes as well or better than anyone else, and the challenges and problems with many of those routes. So collectively, we got over 13,000 comments. That was 5,000 more than last time. So we feel good about that. And we use that to, first of all, have Metro staff actually read every one of those comments, and we collectively use that to develop modifications to our proposal. Those modifications, we always try to address customers' concerns where we could, but to keep the vision, and we always have that, the visionary long-term plan is sort of our guideline of where we want to get to, but to try to do something which we can actually implement within our current constraints and to deliver next summer. So those were some of the balancing act that we were trying to do, but we do feel that the customer input that we received actually makes the plan better than what we brought out in the spring, because it allowed us to zoom into some areas where we didn't quite get it right, where we had some good ideas and suggestions from customers. And by customers, I mean, again, our employees, our actual customers, jurisdictional partners, elected officials. There were all different groups that we talked about. So, and it didn't matter if an item had 1,000 people talking about it or one person. We were taking all of those seriously, and where we could make some modifications, we are looking to do that in ways that advance the connectivity and customer and operator experience and equity that we were trying to do. We used data to back that up. We also used data in many cases to say, no, we think the plan we had is what we should move forward with. Many of our comments were about people wanting more service. We'd love to do that, but again, we're trying to do something within our current resources. So ultimately, we were trying to reimagine both Metrobus and the bus in Prince George's, which has been our partner in this process, moving forward. The next steps right now, as was mentioned before, we were looking to bring this to the board next month. We are literally right now dotting the i's, crossing the t's on this plan, doing quality control to make sure that there aren't mistakes and errors in there. We're doing field checks still with buses checking out turns even as we speak, and ongoing coordination with the jurisdictions, producing for next month maps, route profiles of each route, our Title VI compliance, all of those things that we have to pull together in the next couple weeks for you for next month. So that is our goal. Be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the update. I appreciate all of the hard work that's taken place over the past 2 years. There's a lot of complicated work that has taken place behind the scenes. And if any of us, and many of us have been involved and engaged in the community engagement, stakeholder engagement, et cetera, the slides do demonstrate the outcomes. The enthusiasm we saw on the ground was something very special. I've been involved in trying to solicit community support, stakeholder support, user support in my professional experience. It's very difficult. You all have done a great job of that, and we appreciate it. And you have data to support that. You're touching on a domain that has not been dealt with for quite some time. So thank you for diving in, and thank you for looking at this from an economic point of view as well. Cost neutral initially, and also painting the picture of what the future would look like if we had all of the resources that we would like to have. So thank you for that work, and I'll open the floor to committee members for any. Dr. Lowe.
Thank you for this presentation. I first just want to say that this whole Better Bus project has been an opportunity for me to really see, Peter, you and Allison, like doing your jobs with a lot more visibility than I ever have before. And it's been incredible, actually, just to see just how profoundly capable both of you are. I've just been wowed. And we are so lucky to have talent like you at WMATA. And I've been proud to I can go into a meeting knowing you guys got this, and that everyone else in the meeting is about to be wowed the same way I have been. Really, I honestly, Peter, at this point, I hear your voice and my blood pressure goes down like a point, because I'm oh, it's under control. Your knowledge of our bus network is, I can ask you some random, incredibly specific question about some place that 99% of this people in this room have never been within our region. And you're well, listen, okay, here's how it really works. And I mean, it's just absolutely staggering. You just have it all in your head. But that said, it would be really easy at your level of expertise to be I am the one. I am the one who knows. Ta-da, here's your new bus network. The way you really have read 13,000 comments makes me concerned, but also grateful. It's just the depth of your engagement with the comments that we've received, some of whom are from people who also just have really encyclopedic knowledge of buses, is I just really appreciate how you've engaged with the comments, because that has provided me with much greater confidence through this process that we really are going to get a product at the end that's great for riders, which is the most important thing. I've had people reach out to me at multiple points throughout this project and be is it worth me submitting comments? Is anyone going to read this? And to be able to respond with total confidence that an incredibly serious subject matter expert is going to read the comment and think about it and digest it appropriately has gotten to me to where I need to be totally supportive of this process. That said, I want to sit down and go over the revised network one more time. Obviously, we're not going to do it today. at some point before November, I need to go over everything one more time. Just a few lingering last few little remaining questions. But I really, I'm just grateful with the talent that we've had in this process. The public engagement events have also been not just really fun, but they have been really fun, but also really substantive. And I think there's a new bar for how we get public comment that I don't know that we're always going to be able to hit. But it's just been amazing to see the quality of the engagement that we've gotten from so many different communities through this process. And so I also thank all the community partners who helped us get really substantive comments that actually give us something to chew on in order to make this better. It's just been really good. And I think that it's hard to do a revenue neutral bus network redesign. I don't know that I've ever heard of that. It feels like an oxymoron. But we really are going to get something better for the same amount of money. You know, that kind of opportunity just isn't out there really in life that much. And so it's a huge win for us. And thank you for your hard work in creating this win.
Thank you. Mr. Smedberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tracy said everything I maybe wanted to say, or not all of it, but anyway, some of it. But I did want to add, and I'm not sure if I should direct this to Allison and Peter, or maybe it's better directed to the general manager, talk a little bit about the cost efficiencies related with this as well, because I think this is really an important piece, and the increase in ridership and everything that's taking place and how that fits into this picture, because it really isn't part of this presentation. Tracy touched upon it at the end, but can you go into a little more depth about that? Because I think that's an important message as a part of this process.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. And Tom, you jump in if you got more nuance you'd like to add on that. So I think Board Member Lowe hit an important point, which is bus network redesigns are virtually never cost neutral. I was part of one in the last agency I had the opportunity to be involved with, and we certainly added service. It's very difficult to get consensus around things without adding. There's also the need, and so the need gets heightened more when you do this much engagement. Overwhelmingly amount of comments that we have are people want to see more frequency and more span of hours. We run really good service on some routes Monday to Friday, and Saturday and Sunday we don't. People live a 7-day-a-week life, and if we are going to create access to opportunity for people, they need it every day of the week. We have reliability concerns right now. If you take a Georgia Ave, you take the 50s, a turn of Board Member Worth, I know takes the 50s a lot, and some days has to wait for the next bus. We have other corridors, both in Virginia and Maryland as well, that the reliability is concerning for us because we have a lot of service out there, but between traffic and the volumes of people, we definitely need higher frequencies on certain corridors. I really do appreciate our regional partners too with this bus network infrastructure in Maryland. The collaboration on the bus lanes in Montgomery County was fantastic. DDOT and the mayor's leadership is really pushing a lot of things that are really valuable for us. I mentioned Georgia Ave or Rhode Island. There's a lot of projects that are really going to help this network. But we're going to end up carrying 10, 15,000 more people for the same amount of resources. And I think the best part is it gives us, with this pairing of the subsidy formula, an opportunity to now have a very clear path forward and a vision to show where we need extra service and now how to go about that investment plan. And it's very scalable. So long term, we need a significant more bus service in this region. There's no question about that. How we pick away at that over time, because we couldn't go lift 20% more service tomorrow anyway. We just, between buses and facilities, that's just not possible. But incrementally, we can add service, and working with our regional partners, I think that this network redesign does that. So, no, I really do appreciate you bringing that up. We've heard loud and clear. I specifically have heard loud and clear. Every dollar at this agency has to be looked at to drive service. And we highlighted at our last board meeting, we're delivering more and better service for over $100 million less than we did last year. And this network redesign will not only will add on to that, be more efficient and carry even more people. So lastly, Tom, if I got this stat wrong, I think I saw in the report this morning, we've carried over 400,000 on bus every weekday since the start of September, I think. Is that correct? Pretty close to that. We were basically full on a lot of our routes and a lot of blocks. Some days we're doing 430,000 people. So this bus network is robust, it's busy, and we're looking forward to adding that. Did I get that pretty close, or did I get off by? I don't want to be quoted if I got it totally wrong there.
Yeah, over 400,000 trips on bus, 25 straight days.
25 straight weekdays.
Weekdays.
Yes. And then we'll pretty logically hit again today. So it shows you how many people rely on this bus system. And then chair of the DMV Moves, co-chair of the DMV Moves process, I think it's really been reassuring to watch all the elected officials around the region acknowledge that bus is such a big part of the future of ridership growth in this region. We're not going to be building 15 new rail lines all over the place. Quite frankly, I don't think they're needed that way. We need a much more resilient bus system as the region. So, and it's much more cost efficient. So hopefully that gets to your theme. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. McAndrew.
Thank you. I, say something similar to what I said before. This is sticky wicket. We haven't addressed it for many years, and thank you for taking it on. I think we've got a really, really good product, and hats off to the team for working through this over the years. One item that's in the deck that I think that we need to have a good discussion on before November is the paratransit discussion and costs and implications in terms of what changes are being recommended, because I think that is an important component of the work in terms of where the lines are running and what service is being provided there and the constituencies that are relying on that service as well. So it doesn't seem like we have a projection. We have a recommendation, but a more detailed discussion is warranted. And then looking forward, because we are going to look forward, we're going to implement this effort. I think it would be good to get a sense on two fronts. One, we're going to realign the bus network. We're going to run buses on some routes that maybe don't have it, or corridors that don't have it today, or we're going to consolidate bus stops or move some bus stops. I don't think that the bus network is a unique one. You run the buses, states or jurisdictions facilitate the roadway or sidewalks that enable folks to get there safely. So I think if we can get a sense of kind of access and safety critical station or stops that are being planned that need help early, because the last thing we want to do is be on the Streets blog network next year for bad bus stops because of our bus network redesign. So I think if we can get that early, and then the next one, just an implementation risk. I think as we look out within the state of Maryland, we're talking about some swappage here and there between our local bus providers and WMATA in terms of who's going to run on certain corridors, which I think is healthy. But I think the implementation risk of getting to next summer and not being able to flip the switch on the WMATA system, and then who's serving what, or if we drop the ball there. So I think from a scheduling perspective, I understand we are not yet over the finish line on approving this, but June is going to get here very quick. So I think scheduling that out and understanding the program, and then coming back to this board on a consistent basis to make sure that we're hitting schedule and identifying risks and challenges or where we need to address some gaps is going to be important.
Thank you, Board Member McAndrew. Yes, particularly on the implementation side here, in parallel, we've been mapping out and planning a lot of the activities you described and many others, including real-time information for customers. This is a massive implementation effort. So next month, as we bring the plan to conclusion and to the board for adoption, we'll start some more public discussion of that implementation strategy. And then to your point about stop improvements and other things, the conversations with the Jurisdictional representatives have started, but need to pick up in earnest here to ensure a smooth implementation and transition. It is unrealistic that it's going to be perfect with the scale and complexity, but more emphasis on that as we bring this plan development to conclusion. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Santos?
Thank you, Mr. Drummer. Just a couple of quick comments. I want to just also acknowledge that there were a number of concerns despite all of the outreach and despite the fantastic outreach, but just acknowledging that I know choices had to be made. And I know Board Member Lowe and I received a number of comments from community and elected officials worrying about changes and potential gaps in service. So again, acknowledging that those comments came in and that the team did an excellent job incorporating data to make the best choices given the prioritization, and acknowledging that as we move forward, that there may be opportunities depending on how the district in particular is choices that get made in the future about being able to address some of those perceived gaps. The second thing, building on my colleague, Mr. McAndrew, yes, I know from the district perspective as well, there's a little bit of anxiety on the rollout. So again, the team has done a great job. So just exhort you all to please coordinate as quickly as possible. Because I know in terms of whether it's procurement timeframes and signage, et cetera. And then lastly, my understanding is that there's a semi-annual meetings with ANC citywide in the district. So acknowledging that in December, there's going to be a push to really provide updates. And I don't know when that date is, but if you happen to know, just mentioning it, because again, there's just lingering, questions and trying to get clarity as to when is this happening and what does this mean for me. So I think that event is an opportunity for people to come up to speed, and acknowledging that pencils are down. So this isn't a chance to go back and make significant changes to what's already been done, but at least to inform the public in a substantive way. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you. Tom, Allison, and Peter, thank you again for some great work. And thank you again to all. With no further business to come before the committee, we will stand adjourned, and I'll turn the floor over to Chair Santos for our special board meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Drummer. All right. Good morning. I'm Valerie Santos, Chair of the WMATA Board. Thank you for being here at today's special board meeting. First, we'll start with the approval of the agenda. And I'd like to consider the agenda approved as presented. Are there any objections? Hearing none, the agenda is approved. Thank you. I now need to recognize our Safety and Operations Committee Chair, Mr. Don Drummer, for his committee's report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The following item was referred to the board this morning at the Safety and Operations Committee meeting. Staff requested approval of the annual update to Metro's Agency Safety Plan, ASP. Once approved by the board, the ASP will be submitted to the Washington Metro Rail Safety Commission for final approval. To expedite that process, the board is approving the ASP today rather than awaiting until the regular October 24th board meeting. The ASP is presented today incorporates progress with Metro's safety management system implementation and includes feedback from the WMSC, as well as feedback from Metro employees, the Joint Labor Management Safety Committee, Metro's Executive Safety Committee, the Senior Executive Team, and the Federal Transit Administration. Madam Chair, I move approval.
Thank you, Mr. Drummer. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Lowe. Are there any further comments, discussion? If hearing none, I will ask our corporate secretary to please administer the vote.
Chair Santos,
Yes.
Vice Chair Smedberg,
Aye.
Vice Chair McAndrew,
Aye.
Ms. Klein,
Aye.
Dr. Lowe,
Aye.
Mr. Letourneau,
Aye.
Mr. Drummer,
Aye.
Ms. Martin Proctor.
Confirmed.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Thank you. Now we'll move to the consent agenda.
We have one item on the board's consent agenda today. I would like to move approval of the following technical matter, which is indemnification of Pepco in high voltage equipment inspections. So staff is requesting approval for the general manager to, or his designee, to indemnify Pepco in a hold harmless release. This release is needed to allow Pepco staff to conduct required inspections and testing of new high voltage switchgear being installed through the AC room and traction power state of good repair programs before this equipment is energized. Comments, questions? Otherwise, I will move to approval. Can I please get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Dr. Lowe. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item is approved. Okay, with no further business to come before the board, we will stand adjourned. And thank you for joining us today. We will now move to executive session. And in accordance with the bylaws, I, Valerie Santos, request that the Board of Directors convene in executive session to discuss the following matters pursuant to Article 2, Paragraph 9, subsections A, budgetary matters that may affect legal positions, WMATA contracts, or sensitive relationships with local jurisdictions or the federal government, and B, personnel or labor issues, including discussions of labor contracts and labor negotiations, consideration of interviews of candidates for employment and the assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, or resignation of individuals. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. No, nobody opposes. The ayes have it. Thank you.
you.